Yeah, I'll be it after this video. Um, this video is why, out of everything in the world, right? Why I choose to align myself with Black Islam, right? Meaning African Islam, right? Not just any Islam, because African Islam, but African Islam. African Islam, what I realized, right, on my spiritual journey. Remember, kind of left the earth, right, and I went to travel. I went on a spiritual journey, right, to see if I could discover what's true and what's not true, right? And I realized that African Islam is actually the truth, right? Like when it cut, but when it actually cut down to reality, like remove all I just call it peel back the layers of yourself, right? When it actually peel back all the layers of yourself, right, and cut through all the your likes, dislikes, your preferences, right? Everything. And your titles, your positions, and again back to the root of who he is or the essence of who he is, right? And you're on your journey and you're going back and you're going back and you're going back, right? Back to your source and back to the root, right? So you're cutting back on everything, right? All the social expectations, all the norms, all the cultures, everything. Right? And they're going straight back, right? Straight back to the root of it all, like where it all started, where the origin then, the origin story, origin reality, origin story, whatever it is. Right? And they go all the way back, right? And they just cut off everything, right? Everything that don't make sense, right? Everything that is not of true value, true worth. And they just keep cutting back everything, everything, everything taken it straight back one to Africa, not to Africa, but to Islam Africa. So not just to Islam, but to African Islam, right? So this might drive this might get on some people's nerves because it actually like for me to accept. No, it wasn't hard for me to accept, but it was just like Islam was hard for me to accept, right? As truth, right? But I always had an understanding that black be well, India I thought was the origin, but India is not the origin, right? But Africa close to that in reality and thing, right? So it's just how we just cause problem amongst yourself, right? So Africa is actually the origin, right? This could drive some people. This could be on some people's nerves, really, right? But the whole concept of Krishna too, and the things, even the Christ figure. Nobody died for my sins, but all these figures was actually black, right? Black figures, right? Hindus supposed to know that too by their worships and so on, right? All the Krishna figures, the idols, everything is actually black, 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 like black, like why it is worshipped that is black, 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 right? So you all keep and that's my point. I make that like since I started doing these videos, like you're worshiping idols that black, right? But then you don't be treating black people with the respect that they deserve and accorded, right? So there's just a lesson again that I reiterating, right? To people all over the globe, right? To accord people with the particular respect that they deserve, right? And not view people with regard to skin color, how you view them externally, XYZ. Right? There's a point I make since that's 4 years ago, so and I used to always be making these points, social media, all kind of thing, right? So is to have some respect, right, for people regardless of any external exterior that you perceive about them, right? Anything, right? Anything from how people is dressed, everything, right? The reality is, and this is my problem too with Islam in a way that like how what blacks gone through in the past and stuff, and then they would have had to find their ways to resist white superiority and all that and dominance and choosing to express that. And this is where my contention coming now and where I having a problem, right? And there's probably a crossroad that I had to choose something, right? There's probably like a crossroad I had to make a choice. And that crossroad I believe is near and it's probably between life and death, right? But I don't know. Is it probably between life and death? It was probably between something and something else, right? But that crossroad is a point where you had to choose whether you're choosing to resist, right? As a point of resistance or as a point of acceptance, right? And I don't know if other people on this journey too and they being confronted with the same decision, right? But it's a point of resistance or a point of acceptance. What I mean by this, right? That crossroad, right, is a crossroad meaning you're accepting Islam, right? Because in reality, Islam it's nothing like African Islam, right? And that is where you're kind of trippy, right? Because knowing that Africa is the source, right? I feel that and I experience that, right? But then I was also led to England where I discovered the Quran, right? and I experience Allah being the reality and the only reality too, right? So that is why I say Black Islam is well. But then going down to the root, it have nothing like Black Islam, right? It have nothing like African Islam, right? That taken away from Islam, right? So when I say the crossroad now and a choice is like, hey, is it that you accept Islam, right? And Allah, right? A surrender to Allah, right? Or you continue your journey and die for the sake of resistance and die for that cause, right? Live and die for that cause, or live and die for Islam, right? So you live and die for a cause of black. That is what African resistance, right, over white, because that I experienced that reality too. I experienced white repeat colonial slavery. So hey, it's either you live or die. That's why I made a video recently. Live and die for black hate. Live or die for black hate. Right? But then they also confronted with Islam, right? As the reality as well. Right? But then it have nothing like African Islam, because that taken away from Islam. Right? From the time you put a title or ethnicity behind Islam, right? I mean that taken away from Islam, right? Because the black box, right, in Mecca, right, that is an idol too. That is an idol too, right? So the minute you put ethnicity behind Islam now,